Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the PokerNews Podcast. I am your girl, Sarah Herring, joined by Chad Holloway. We are not joined by the one and only Jeff Platt. Everyone knows he's big timing us. He's got so many things going on. I guess the U.S. Poker Open takes precedence or whatever. Am I right, Chad?
You know, he's a very busy man, very in demand. Brent Hanks is his cohort this week, and you and I are left out in the rain a little bit, Sarah. But it's going to be me and Jeff, I think, for the foreseeable future, right? Because you are going to be on maternity leave here any day now, really.
Guys, can't wait. So my official last day is the 18th. I'll probably still do a few things the next couple weeks if the baby doesn't arrive. But yeah, it's happening. We're making a new member of the PokerNews family, and hopefully who will someday not listen and subscribe to all of my unpopular opinions. He will be embarrassed, obviously, by his mom, no matter what. Okay, well, we have an interesting show for you guys. We have Maria Konnikova coming on, one of just my favorite people in poker to talk to. She's such a just fascinating character, so articulate. Obviously, she's got all the accolades and all of the writing skills. And we will, of course, dive in a little bit to that. There's a little bit of juicy drama to be discussed as it pertains to Maria, but we do have her as a guest this week, and her, the book that she was studying, which we've been covering with her for 3 years or so. The whole reason that she entered the poker world is coming out in paperback this week. So you guys definitely want to, if you haven't already, check that out, check it out. And it also will come in to play a little bit in the juicy drama we talk about. So, Chad, when we talk about juicy drama, it's not that uncommon for Doug Polk's name to come up in the mix. It's actually one of the things I really like about Doug. You know, and even when we spoke to Daniel, who at the time was having beef with Doug, he's like, there's a lot of things about Doug that I don't like, but I respect that he just says what he thinks. And I also respect that, but clearly a lot of other people don't.
You know, I'm hit or miss on it. So let me break it down and what happened. First, let me preface this by saying Jeff Platt recorded the interview with Maria Konnikova prior to any of this happening. So we did not have the opportunity to get her thoughts on this, unfortunately, but we're still going to talk about it. It was a tweet sent out by Doug Polk yesterday. It shows two screenshots side by side. One is of an article from CNN Health under their mindfulness section. And it says, "How do you navigate risk in the pandemic? Top poker player tells all." And then the other screenshot is of Maria Konnikova's Hendon mob that shows her picture with total live earnings of almost $312,000. And Doug Polk's tweet simply reads, in quotes, "Top poker player, Maria Konnikova." Basically throwing some shade, saying, come on now, is Maria Konnikova really a top poker player? And look, I like Doug Polk's hot takes in a lot of regards, but as somebody responded to his tweet, and there are a lot of responses, it's caused a little bit of an uproar. There is a difference between going, blow for blow against somebody like Daniel Negreanu, another heavyweight, compared to punching down, so to speak, right? You can punch up, but you shouldn't be punching down. And I feel like this is a case where he's using his large audience, his large influence to take a shot at Maria Konnikova when it really shouldn't be directed there. It should be directed at CNN for their headline, which, okay, maybe she's not a top poker player. She doesn't claim to be, right? She was an amateur who didn't even really know much about poker, wanted to do some research into risk, and used poker as a platform to do that, and has had some success playing poker along the way. She's never claimed to be a top poker player. It was CNN taking liberties, making a catchy headline, and really they're a mainstream outlet. They probably don't know the minutia and the difference between what we in the poker industry would consider a top poker player and a recreational player. I don't know. It just, on this one, I think Doug Polk would have been better off not tweeting it in the first place, or if he did, direct it more towards CNN instead of it kind of taking a shot at Maria, which is, whether or not that was his intention, I think a lot of people took it that way. And she's responded on the Twitter thread.
Yeah, so her response was basically, I've never claimed to be a top professional poker player, and feel free to read my book where I also never claimed to be a top poker player. And I'm sure as someone who really has, dived into the poker world, as it were, she more than anyone does understand the difference between a top poker player and like a pretty good one or an average one. Or I think there's a lot of degrees on the way down. And, I think this also, it's interesting to me because I didn't take it as such a personal thing against Maria, although I could also see how that really now. But to me, it opened up the question of what is a top poker player, but also the question of, as someone in the media, what's our responsibility to, knowing our audience versus knowing these like very specific niche audiences, which I would say poker really is, to someone writing at CNN, seeing that someone made 350K or whatever it was, like maybe to them, they were like, wow, totally top poker player. And then someone deep down in the thread had mentioned, well, she's like, the 7,000th best poker player, according to Hendon Mob, which out of 550,000 is actually pretty good. And so it's interesting because, for us, I think struggling with capturing a headline, making a catchy headline, but also capturing the true nature of the story that you're going to write or that the video you're going to produce or whatever, it is a delicate balance, certainly. And I would say for the mainstream audience, using the term top poker player is probably a great and like pretty spot on actually title, but it is kind of disrespectful to like top poker players probably. Do you see how that could be? Like if you're Eric Seidel, right, who coaches Maria, who I think has tons of respect for Maria, Eric Seidel is the top poker player.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly get that aspect of it. The headline here, look, like Maria Konnikova didn't have a say in the headline. The author of the article, Lisa Sellen Davis, probably didn't even have a say in it. I can tell you, as somebody who manages content for Poker News, that oftentimes the headlines get changed around. I've done it to other pieces. I've had it done to my pieces. Sometimes they're done for the sake of clarity, for search engine optimization. To make things more salacious and clickbaity. Look, it's about hits sometimes for a lot of sites. I try not to go too sensationalist, but there is something about, hey, let's throw in Daniel Negreanu breaks plexiglass. That article is going to get a ton of hits, and it did. You got to go with what works. And for CNN here, they aren't going to say average poker player or aspiring poker player. Like they probably could have chose better and just said poker pro tells all. That opens up another can of worms, and it reminds me of a Twitter debate I had a week or two ago with Tim Riley and a few others that chimed in surrounding Anna Kate when we were talking about her and when she was in the poker headlines. They were saying, come on, is she really a poker pro? They too referenced her Hendon Mob. And it was one of those situations like, look, who am I to say who is and isn't a poker pro? Really? What are the criteria? If somebody says they're a poker pro, which she did by going on the television show Survivor and billing herself as a poker pro, like that's how we're going to refer to her. Like maybe she's not out there grinding, having the results, but I don't know. To me, you can be a poker pro if that's your main source of income, if that's what you're doing for a living, even if you're losing and eventually you're going to wash out and have to go find a real job. Who's to say who's a poker pro and who's not? Saying top poker pro, or top poker player rather, I do see that as being a little more clear cut, I suppose, a little more objective. But again, just the whole tweet, and Doug Polk loves to stir the pot. There's no doubt about it. He's done it here. I just felt like, come on, why are we picking on Maria? She's a great poker ambassador. She's done a great service to the poker industry by jumping into it, diving into it head first and writing this book, which is an absolutely amazing book. And we're going to talk to her about it here later on the show. And just for all intents and purposes, she's a good guy in poker, right? So why take the shot? If it was done in jest, just as kind of to be funny, Polk has had some hit or miss jokes over the years. I guess so be it. But I don't know. It's just one of those where if I would have typed it out, I would have been like, yeah, this could be kind of funny, but probably not a good idea to hit the send button.
Well, it opened it up for lots of other funny jokes. So at least at a minimum in the poker world, we can say we got some laughs, we got some smiles this week, certainly. And maybe now for our Poker News debate series, I have a new question, which is what defines a poker professional? I don't know how we can turn that into a debate. I have to think about it, but it is an interesting question. And I remember actually meeting someone quite a few years ago who told me that she was a professional windsurfer, and me just being like, well, what does that mean? And I think that there's a lot of things probably where that is the question. And to me, I would argue that if you are going to call yourself a professional something, it should likely be that your main source of income, and I think you hinted at that, comes from said thing. If you're really good at windsurfing, that's awesome. But like, are you also a waitress maybe, or maybe something else? I'm not sure. Maria Konnikova, I would say, certainly classifies herself as a writer, and rightly so. She is a fantastic writer. And we will get into her interview very soon. But in the meantime, let's take a quick moment to shout out to our sponsors, Elite Chip Care.
Are your chips dirty and unsanitary? Elite Chip Care's ultrasonic cleaners kill bacteria and pathogens without using chemicals. Protect your team from potentially hazardous chemicals, UV, and gases. For daily sanitizing of your chips, our laboratory oven will eradicate most viruses using only heat. Up to 2,500 chips sanitized in just 3 minutes. Avoid the reoccurring expense of costly chemicals, UV bulbs, and gases. Safe, inexpensive, and sustainable. Visit EliteChipCare.com.
Well, as we go through the billing this week of the most juicy gossip, this seems to be the thing that most of the poker world was discussing, and I'm actually very interested and excited to discuss this. I would like to see this on the next Poker News debate, because it is something that seems to have come up quite a few times over the course of the last year or so. And it involves what sort of transparency or responsibility, do poker sites really have for defining why they say kick someone off, for defining how or why they determine that someone maybe does not deserve their prize money. And most recently, this came up with Party Poker during the Party Poker WPT 500, which we talked about last week, because in the form of mentioning that this was a huge thing for Jamie Staples, who took third. I think he made around 80K, something around 80K. And this decision impacts him. It impacts mostly, though, the champion of this event, David Afework, was disqualified after Party Poker said that basically he had allowed a third party to utilize his account. So to me, that is sort of transparent. Like, they are saying, this is why we think that you're disqualified. And his response was that, maybe it's because he lives with another poker player and has for about 7 months, but he claimed that his girlfriend was the only one there who saw him. He never let anyone else play his account. Chad, this is an interesting spot, I guess. I don't think that they make these kind of decisions lightly, A, and B, there's really no bonus for Party Poker to take someone's funds, right? They don't have any incentive to do this. So I have to think that there's probably a good reason. That being said, he took to 2+2. He said he thinks it's unfair and that there's no reason. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so he's a British poker player. He outlasted a field of 2,088 entries to win this tournament on June 1st for $160,000. So we're talking about a big payday. He gets this email. They're seizing his funds. They're basically moving everybody up a spot, which means that Henning Andre out of Sweden, who finished runner-up, is going to make an extra $52,000 by becoming the official winner. Jamie Staples, who had won $74,000, will instead move up to runner-up at $108,000. So nice bump ups for those guys. And David Afework, meanwhile, is understandably upset, takes to 2+2, opens this can of worms. And here we are left to kind of sort through the pieces, because we don't know exactly what the evidence is, what the details are. He does say in the 2+2 thread that, like you said, he has a roommate who is also a poker player, who he claims wasn't playing on the account. Party Poker is suggesting there is something up, something up, that their security detected that they feel comfortable in making this decision. And when dealing with 6-figure scores and 5-figure swings, is pretty serious. So they got to be pretty confident in their determination. My guess, and again, this is just pure speculation, I don't know anything. I know that sometimes it's popular with poker players who live together or recreational to maybe even innocently enough share an account, even if it's when they're playing, 5 cent, 10 cent. Let's say you and I are living together, Sarah, you're playing and you're like, oh, I'm going to go out to eat. And let me just play on the account a little bit. And we're just playing, not realizing that if you go on to play a serious event like this WPT 500, that sort of stuff can come back to bite you in the ass, because you might be playing a certain way, then I suddenly jump on and start playing a different way. And we set this precedent that the security algorithms or the security teams can go back and balance it against. So again, just pure speculation on my part. It could be a scenario where these two roommates had played on the same account. Again, not necessarily in a malicious way, could be innocent enough, and then end up playing this WPT 500. Maybe David Afework really did play it all by himself all the way to the end, but his play differed in such a way that set off those red flags where they made the determination that there's been violations to the terms and conditions, and they seized that prize pool. Now, what David Afework will do from here, who knows? I know he's appealed to the poker community. We've done an article on Poker News. He's kind of went radio silent as of late on the 2+2 forums, at least when I read through it again this morning. I know he was kind of reaching out to Joey Ingram, so maybe this will be a Joey investigation. Who knows? But it seems a lot of people think that Party Poker wouldn't do this willy-nilly, that they have to have a very clear reasoning, clear evidence to be able to do it. And unfortunately, we just don't know all the details. Party Poker did release a statement to Poker News. It was rather generic, if you will. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. It says, we have a dedicated game integrity team who use a variety of detection methods to proactively identify accounts that are in breach of our terms and conditions. Real name tables help provide a community feel while reducing anonymity. A real account holder should never give a third party access to their account, as stated in our general terms and conditions, which is section 12. If we establish reasonable evidence of this happening, we reserve the right to take action on the account in question in order to maintain a safe and fair playing environment. In situations where we seize money from an account which has infringed our rules on policies, we endeavor to redistribute these funds in a timely manner to all players who were impacted by the actions of the offending account. So to me, that statement says they feel very confident that David Afework somehow violated the terms and conditions. They have evidence, reasonable evidence of it happening, and therefore made their decision and have bumped everybody up. I don't know if there'll be a legal recourse for David Afework here. If he wants to come on the podcast and talk about it, that invitation is there. But shitty situation, I think, all around.
Yeah, it's a bummer. You don't want to hear that. And he even had said that he went and ran up like 2K pounds into like 18K on the blackjack tables, and that they also confiscated that money. There, I would say it's a little bit sketchier. Like, he probably should just give him the 18K he won or whatever. But I definitely have to agree with you. All it is bad publicity ultimately, right, for Party Poker. And so I don't see them doing this unless they have a pretty good case. It's interesting when we think about everything with Mike Postle, seeing the poker world entering the traditional judiciary model is kind of complex and bizarre because there are just so many weird nuances. That being said, we all know about the terms and conditions of basically anything and everything. Like we have terms and conditions all over our lives, and we agree to stuff all the time that we don't even know we agree to. And I do think that's one of the things that's interesting. We talk about, being regulated, etc. But even regulated sites, you agree to these terms and conditions, right? You agree that you will forfeit your money if they detect this type of activity or whatever. And I have to assume that they probably have a pretty good case that will likely not be something that would be accepted in the court of law, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to keep track of this. And I like to see these type of things going into the judicial space, because I do think it's almost like the checks and balances, right? Just in general, that it's a good thing for the poker industry to see things go into the judicial world and see, what the rest of the world deems reasonable out of the rules and decisions that we've made. But yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. I have a feeling just what you said is likely true. If you had two different IP addresses from the same apartment complex that had certain patterns and certain styles of play, and then suddenly one of the IP addresses started playing very similar to the one from before, this is probably where they went. I don't know. I'm interested. I think it's a really interesting story, and I'm sure that this kind of thing has happened lots of times in the poker world that we haven't seen or talked about. So I like the conversation. In not surprising news, Niklas Astedt won the WSOPC circuit for around $800,000, which is crazy bananas. And we actually talked a little bit last week about potentially Niklas being the best online poker player ever. And this is a gigantic claim, obviously. But Chad, it seems like my guess is that you would get behind this.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. It seems like we're talking about him every week on the podcast, and this week it is because he won the 2021 WSOP Super Circuit Online Series $525 main event at GGPoker. It's a $525 buy-in, and like you said, won $758,000. Just an incredible, massive payday. It was the largest online circuit main event in history. Clearly, it had a $10 million guarantee. It crushed, a $5 million guarantee, which it crushed over a $7.2 million prize pool, thousands and thousands of players. And here it's Niklas Astedt, who is arguably the best online poker player we've ever seen. It's so much so we talked about him that actually, and not even blowing smoke right now, I reached out to him today. I sent an email and I said, look, we're talking about you every week on the podcast. Come on the show. Let's have you as a guest. We'd love to chat with you. Whether or not he responds or he's open to that will remain to be seen, but I would love to have him on the show and just chat with him, because he is just a crusher. Every time, every week, every tournament, he's just banking, he's printing, and this is a guy I would love to get to know more. And it's hard sometimes to give the poker spotlight to the online guys because they're playing from behind a computer screen. We don't get to get photos of them and such, and video footage or what have you. So Niklas Astedt, remember that name. He'll probably be at the World Series of Poker this summer. He does make appearances there. I'm sorry, this fall.
And I've been saying this summer all the time.
Right?
Even in emails, I keep having to correct myself. It's so annoying. But I noticed, so one of the things after this victory is that through GGPoker, he, his status is like, diamond or something crazy. I can't remember, but essentially he gets all of these things as a result of reaching. I need to figure out exactly what the status was, but as I was reading the story, some of the things included in his new status on GGPoker, team benefits. So team champions. Yeah, okay, so he's a member of Team Champions now at GGPoker. So he gets a custom avatar, platinum fish party status, Team Champions badge, a unique affiliate code, a $50,000 tournament package, which can be used for the GGPoker Online Series main event, and the live WSOP event, the live WSOP Europe main event, and other events, that I'm sure he can decide whatever he wants to do. And he also gets GG Lounge access at live events. So this means multiple things for us. One, I hope that he goes to the World Series of Poker live and also online based on these gifts potentially. I'm really hoping to see him, and also that we can stalk him in the GG Lounge, hopefully. So I'm really excited to hopefully see him, just like Chad said, more on the live circuit so we can get to know and pick the brain of this clearly brilliant and unbelievably impressive poker player, if we can pull him away from the computer even for a brief moment. And yeah, while we're talking about GG and all the things that they're giving away, let's take a brief moment to hear what Kevin Martin has to say about their program, GG Cares.
Kevin Martin from GGPoker here, and I just got to ask, have you heard about GG Care? Oh, you haven't? Well, guess what? It's the new daily promotion that rewards you for experiencing all the bad luck poker has to offer. You know, the bad beats, the coolers, the suckouts, they're so frustrating. We hate them so much, but they cannot be avoided. But now, if you experience a bad beat on GGPoker, GG Care has your back. You'll automatically be registered to play in the next daily $30,000 GG Care flip out tournament. Here's the best part. You don't even have to be online for these flip out tournaments. Yes, you still have a chance for cash to go right into your balance. So remember, next time you're on GGPoker and you take a bad beat, GG Care has your back. So if you have not joined the fastest online growing website, then make sure you join the GGPoker community and join me at the tables very soon.
Well, in the live poker realm, there's something we've been kicking around for a while, something as a former resident of Las Vegas, I have been dying to see. There's been this partially constructed, but looking really, really nice building for a long time, you know, right off the old strip. And it's been turned into what looks like it's going to be potentially the sickest casino property ever on the strip, and the first one to open since the Cosmo, which was the sickest property on the strip probably, but did not offer poker. $4.3 billion property, the Resorts World, is going to be opening this summer, June 24th, 2021. Chad, I'm so excited they're going to have a poker room.
I'm pretty excited too. This has been in the works for quite some time. It's really 2013 is when this was announced. They broke ground in 2015. To put that in perspective, Joe McKeehen, Qui Win, Scott Blumstein, John Sin, none of these guys had won the World Series of Poker main event when this thing started going up. And for people like you and me and others who travel to Vegas, every time we go, we see it get a little bit bigger. You know, they're building it up a little bit more. And now it is basically completed. It's slated to open on Thursday, June 24th, which is very exciting for me because I'm flying into Vegas on Wednesday, June 23rd. So I'm going to be in Vegas. Me and Jesse Folan, the social media manager from PokerNews, are going to go down to Resorts World. We're going to check everything out, check out the property, check out the poker room, try to give everybody a behind the scenes look. And it's just exciting. It's the first casino property to open on the Las Vegas Strip since the Cosmopolitan opened in 2010. Right? It's the first poker room to open really since the Westgate and Sahara opened poker rooms. You just don't see many poker rooms opening nowadays. You usually hear about them closing, as a matter of fact. So we don't know what their tournament schedule is going to be like. We don't know what their cash game offerings are going to be like. They had a rendering of what their poker room will look like, and it looks pretty sweet. It had about a dozen tables. There's supposed to be some high limit areas. I don't know. I'm all about whenever a poker room opens in Vegas, supporting that poker room, showing them that we as a community appreciate them taking poker seriously and giving us another place to play. So best believe I'm going to be there when they open. I encourage anybody listening, if you're coming in to the Las Vegas this summer for the Win events, for the Venetian events, for the WSOP.com online bracelet events, swing on over to Resorts World, or if it's not until the fall that you're coming in for the World Series of Poker, definitely check it out. It should be something. And this is all unsolicited, not paid. We'd love to have Resorts World as an advertiser, so come on board if you're hearing this, but this is just me genuinely getting excited about a new property opening up on the
Ditto. I am so excited. And I remember, like, as a, Las Vegas resident who also likes to gamble, they invited, me to come to the Cosmo when it opened and have a suite or whatever there, which was very fancy. I felt so bougie, but I love poker so much that I ended up spending way more than I would have probably on a suite playing Ultimate Texas Hold'em. And I just would give this as like a public service announcement for our listeners and viewers. Ultimate Texas Hold'em is really not Texas Hold'em at all. And I wish I could say I learned my lesson there that time, but I did not. That continues to be an issue for me. Well, if you want to know a little bit about risk, as we know, and how to mitigate, how to approach risk both in your life and also on the felt, how these two things and learning about one can really help impact and influence the other. Maria Konnikova is the woman to talk to, and we are very lucky to have her on the show. Lucky that Jeff is such a big time baller, shot caller, that he probably has Maria on speed dial. Like, and he disses us for the show, but whatever. Let's welcome to the show, Maria Konnikova.
All right, she is a New York Times best-selling author. It is Mastermind, How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes. It is The Confidence Game. And of course, it is The Biggest Bluff, which comes to paperback soon. Maria Konnikova, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Jeff. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Excited to talk with you again. And so in our last podcast interview, Maria, I think we did kind of the book review. And so, you all listening can go back if you want to hear about specific parts of the book. What I'm curious about, Maria, is kind of the reaction, and how would you sum up what the reaction to this book has been over the last year or so?
I've been incredibly gratified that it seems to have found an audience and that people seem to have responded to it, despite the fact that we're going through a global pandemic. It was not the ideal time to launch a book into the world. It came out last June. Things were really bad and people had other things on their minds, and not poker and certainly not my book. And so it was scary to not know if anyone would even read it, if it would find any traction. And so it was just this ridiculously gratifying thing to see that people still seemed to respond to it. And, in retrospect, I think a lot of the themes of the book are relevant to kind of the year we just went through in terms of learning to deal with uncertainty and the role of luck and how bad luck can just derail things in a heartbeat. And so I think that thematically it hit a chord, but I have to say I felt a little bit sheepish, while all of this is going on, being like, and play poker. Yay.
For sure. And, I want to hit on the pandemic part of it all, because I know from an author's perspective, that has to just make you nervous. I mean, we've hyped this, but this in the poker world, we've asked you about the book for years. And so I'm sure there were such grand plans to launch it during the World Series of Poker. And then you have, I'm sure, a live press tour and book tour. And then you're just kind of relegated to what the pandemic was.
That's exactly right. And we did. I mean, the book was, it came out June 23rd, and that was the World Series that never happened.
Yeah.
It was actually the date was chosen specifically. It was 1 week before the main event.
Wow.
So it was chosen to be kind of in the middle of all of this so that we had all this press tied to the main event and to kind of the World Series. And we had all of these great ideas for doing a tour linked to casinos where you could do book signings and like have, meetup games and all sorts of fun and exciting stuff, because with poker, you could really have a book tour that's different. Yeah. And that looks different from traditional book tours. And all of that obviously got canceled. And everything became virtual, and the World Series went away, and the news pegs went away. And a lot of the news shows that would have normally covered my book ended up pulling out of interviews that they had committed to, because there was more important newsy stuff to be covering. And I think a lot of authors went through that, not just poker, but just sure. Everything, where the world just changed. People couldn't get books because, warehouses weren't able to ship them quickly enough. We couldn't print things. Printers stopped working. There was just a lot that people had to navigate from. And like I said, I feel very, very lucky that my book was able to navigate that and make it through. I mean, it didn't just happen on its own. The team at Penguin Press, who's my publisher, did an amazing job, but it was a nail-biting kind of journey.
Are you keeping your options open as far as doing anything with this year's World Series of Poker? I mean, I know by the time we hit it, it'll be about, a year and a half or so since the book's actual launch. But do you think there's anything you could do in person?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. I mean,
Okay.
I plan on being there. So I definitely plan on playing. In fact, I'm, headed to Vegas in just a few days.
Oh,
And I'm still planning to be a part of the poker world. I'm not going anywhere. So hopefully we can get some of those events that we had canceled long before, and have a book relaunch.
yeah, that sounds good to me. And I wanted to get to this later, but let's touch on it now since you just hit it. How excited are you for kind of your return to live poker and just the overall, it feels like we're in a mini boom of sorts as far as poker is concerned.
Oh, so excited. I mean, I've missed it. I haven't played live poker in over a year.
Wow.
And it's something that I think is just such an exciting sign that we're finally getting past this year.
Yeah.
And that people are embracing life again, and we can. And I'm someone who's been incredibly cautious. I mean, I live in New York City, and I was here during March, April, May of last year when people were just dying in thousands every single day, and the only soundtrack I had in my apartment was just sirens around the clock. And so I've been very serious about quarantine and not seeing people and wearing masks. And I got my vaccine the second I could get my vaccine. And so I'm just so excited that, we're finally at a place where we can actually see human beings. and I've missed it. I've certainly missed poker. It had become a big part of my life in a short period of time.
And are you keeping up with poker at all? I know it's a little difficult for you to play online in New York, but maybe a couple trips to New Jersey here and there to get in the mix online.
Absolutely. Well, I have been to New Jersey. I mean, I did. I played the World Series online last summer, not the whole thing, but I was there for part of it. And I do, play some home games from New York. I have been keeping up. I've been studying and keeping up with my run it once content.
There we go.
And doing my best to kind of keep my mind in it so that I could come back, because I don't feel it's funny once you get to a certain competitive level. It's very difficult to say, I'll just come and splash around. Right. I want to feel like I have an edge. I want to feel like, I know what's going on. So, and I've definitely ramped up my studying, in the last month when it's become clear that I'd be able to play soon.
So with that said, what does the rest of the year look like for you as far as poker is concerned?
We'll see. I mean, I'm playing everything by ear. I'm working on a lot of new projects right now. Okay. And so just kind of, listen, if COVID taught us anything, it's one day at a time, right? Don't right. Plan too far ahead. But I plan on playing some of the Win Summer Series. I hopefully will play the 10K as well.
Nice.
In what is it, late June, early July, and some of the Venetian. And I'm definitely going to be there for the World Series. So, well, never say definitely, right? Sure. Yeah, but I plan on being there for the World Series. And we'll see how it goes, one event at a time. Sure. But I definitely am planning on being at all the big ones.
Okay. That is fantastic to hear. And Maria, I know you've been aligned with PokerStars in the past. Does a deal like that with an online poker operator or something similar interest you moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I still feel very strongly about being an ambassador for the game. I think even without a deal, I am in the sense of, I with the Biggest Bluff, and kind of, I feel very strongly about representing the community well, and continuing to do that and continuing to bring more people to the game and teaching them to appreciate it and to appreciate why it's such a great game, why it's not gambling, why it's actually such a powerful game of skill, and how exciting it can be and how much it can teach you about yourself, and about your mind. So yes, absolutely.
Can you
come at me, poker companies, hit me up.
Okay, can you allow me to be cliche and hit the women in poker topic, and as an ambassador for the game, what you think needs to change in this game we all love so much, to welcome more women to the felt?
I think that's a really important question. And I'm hoping that, the existence of the Biggest Bluff and the fact that I'm out there will actually bring more people to the game. The existence of people like Chrissy Bicknell, people who are like crushing, right, at a high level. I'm not comparing myself to Chrissy in terms of poker
you definitely
abilities.
were. I think you said you were better. Yeah. I think you called her out.
Fine. Sorry, Chrissy. I never wanted to tell you this face to face, but it's coming out on the podcast.
That's going to be the headline. Konnikova calls out Chrissy B.
But to have people like her, I mean, I admire her so much. She just shows that women can do it at the highest levels. Doesn't need to be a ladies event, doesn't need to be anything like that. I mean, she's killing it at the high rollers. To have people like that, to have me, from a totally different angle, try to kind of be an ambassador for the game, I think that will do something. But you said, what needs to change? And I do think that some things do need to change and are already changing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the attitudes and what is and isn't okay do need to change. And yeah, I agree that a lot of it is on us to kind of just be strong players. But there's also kind of a question of, what's the attitude like when I walk into a casino?
Right.
How do people respond? What is and isn't okay to say at a table? I mean, the amount of shit that I've dealt with just is also pales in comparison to the amount of shit that female dealers have to deal with every single day. And I just see those types of dynamics and see them being tolerated. And until the attitude changes from the top, I think that it's not going to be a particularly welcoming environment, especially at the lower stakes, when you're not, playing 10K buy-in events and 5K buy-in events, when you're just going to a casino and sitting down at the 1-2 game, right? What is that like? Because that's going to be, for most new players, that's the entry point, is kind of seeing what that's like. And I think that has to be a zero tolerance policy type of thing, where it's just as bad as racism, and where it's not okay to proposition someone at the table, where it's not okay to call someone a bitch or a cunt or whatever else you want to call them, where those types of things just aren't okay. And I think that that's true of everywhere, not just poker. I think we just need to change what is and isn't allowed, and kind of what the norms of behavior are on a large scale in society. Poker just happens to be this incredibly masculine domain where it's on steroids, where you can really see those dynamics playing out. And you'll notice that I did not say anything about ladies events. I totally understand why they exist, and I totally get that a lot of people support them. I personally don't like them, and I don't think that that's the way to go. And I get that some women feel comfortable there because the norms haven't changed elsewhere, but I feel strongly about competing on a playing field with everyone.
Do you see ladies events though as a good welcoming platform for women in poker, or do you think that it's better to just jump right into regular normal poker?
I mean, it's very dependent on the person. For me, it's much better. It was much better to jump in to regular poker, and I far prefer regular poker to women's events. I actually don't like them and don't feel as welcome there, and don't feel because I think my attitude is different, and I've kind of come up in a different world, and people I actually prefer, I find these days I find more welcome at a table full with men, which says something, but I do think there's a place for ladies events because everyone's different, right? And some women might feel more comfortable in that environment, and that's great, and that's wonderful for them, and I want them to be able to have a forum where they can play. I think that it's all personal, and there's kind of no one size fits all, and I think that that's really important to to realize that what works for me might not work for you,
Right.
and vice versa, and to kind of be open-minded about it, and not to say like, this is the way to get more women into poker, right? This is what we must do. That there are lots of things and lots of ways for women. But I don't agree. I've heard some people say, maybe just women don't want to play poker. I don't think that's true. I just think a lot of them, walk in and then walk right out because what they find is not very welcoming. I think that's total bullshit. I think women want to play poker and will crush at it if allowed to flourish.
Okay, so on that point, you mentioned this kind of 1-2 game earlier, and I think we have a lot of recreational players who listen to this podcast. And do you think it's on some of those players to start speaking up? Because I think we're seeing more and more rooms enforce a zero tolerance policy where they aren't going to put up with anything. But a lot of times everything just flies under the radar and goes underreported. So do you think it's on some of these guys at the table just having fun, playing 1-2 to start to call things out a bit more?
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's on everyone to call things out. I mean, one of the things at the beginning when I was just starting out and had no idea what I was doing and also felt very uncomfortable because it wasn't my world, I would see things and just kind of not say anything because I didn't want to cause a disturbance and I didn't know. And it took a while, but I got to the point where, if anyone says or does something, and it doesn't have to be about women, I've called out some other pretty egregious behaviors. I will say something and I'll call over the floor and I'll actually make a stink. And there are a few poker players who I think probably really don't like me because of that, because I've called them out. But I think that unless people do start doing that, if people just kind of laugh and look the other way, then those behaviors are never going to change. So it is, what I was saying earlier about norms of behavior, they come from the top, but they also have to be kind of enforced on all levels. And so what I always just try to say is, if you play poker, just don't be an asshole. Don't be.
Shouldn't be hard.
Just there are certain things that just, and it's not just poker. Just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
That's not a particularly difficult thing to do. And I think that that's a good way of going through life. And I say asshole in a gender neutral way.
Of course.
I can be an asshole too.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying there. Back to the book as we wrap up this convo, Maria. Does any one person's reaction specifically stand out to you? Like oh my God, I can't believe this person said this about my book.
I mean, the one that meant the most is that Eric liked it.
That's huge,
By Eric, I mean Eric Seidel.
Yeah.
That was a big moment for me because I'd been working with him for many years, but I'd been working on the book by myself in this bubble. And he was the first person to read it after my editor, after I had actually kind of made changes and, put it all together. I gave it to him kind of in a very early stage because, he's a central part of it. And it was so incredibly gratifying to see him respond positively to it. So I think that's something that's just, it's one of these things where I've gone through this always saying, I hope I don't let Eric down.
Yeah.
and I hope I didn't.
Yeah, I don't think you did. So I think we knew going in that this book would be a hit with poker players. So why do you think its reach carries so much wider than that?
Because it's never been about poker.
Yeah.
And the book isn't about poker.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, on the surface, it's a journey through the world of poker, but it's about, I think, questions that all of us think about. It's about luck, and it's about control, and it's about kind of all of these forces in life that affect us, whether we've ever been at a poker table or not. And that's what inspired me to write the book. I came to the book before I knew anything about poker. And I think that that's kind of what speaks universally to people above and beyond poker. And a lot of the lessons, a lot of the things that kind of I came to through the poker table, they're really lessons for life, and how to make decisions and how to live and how to think. And I think that that's something that is of interest to people beyond the poker community. At least I would hope so.
Yeah, right. I agree with you there. So give us the details of this paperback launch.
It is coming out on June 8th,
Mm-hmm.
And will be available to everyone who did not have time to buy the hardcover.
Good way to phrase it. Yeah.
And I hope that they will take advantage of the new edition and the new softcover price to buy it. But I'll be doing still the book tour events are still virtual, but that means I get to do events with all sorts of fun people. So I'm doing the paperback launch with Nate Silver, who's wonderful. He's a friend and someone who's actually also doing his own book about gambling that will be out in a few years. So that's exciting. And I'm doing another event with another friend, Michael Ian Black. So that'll be very different from the one with Nate, I think, and a lot of fun. Josh Foyer for people who were fans of Moonwalking with Einstein. So a lot of just really, really incredible writers and people.
Well, I've told you this before. This is not just for the sake of the podcast, but it's not just one of the best poker books out there. I think it's just one of the best books, period. I love it. My family loves it. My friends love it. It is exceptional, and I would highly encourage it. Maria, thank you so much for the time. I hope to see you over these next couple of weeks in Las Vegas.
I hope so too, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. It is always such a pleasure talking to you.
I appreciate that. You got it.
Well, Chad, when we talk about the MSPT, I basically always think of you. You were, when you abandoned PokerNews for that short period, like our trial separation period, you were in charge, I want to say, of like marketing or media or something at the MSPT. And the MSPT really, in the course of the last decade-ish has made its name for itself in the poker world. Maybe that's just because of you. I'm not sure. There might be other reasons, but I wanted to say this. So Harlen Miller, won the MSPT Venetian main event. Dude, $368,000. Like MSPT is coming up in the world. Am I right?
Well, yeah, they've got a great partnership with the Venetian. It dates back now many years. They've built legitimate tournaments. There's going to be another one this weekend. It's a $1,600 buy-in. We're going to be doing live updates for that for PokerNews. It's going to be another massive field. It's going to be another massive first place payout. But this one was an $1,100 main event, 2,790 entries over 4 starting flights, or nearly $2.7 million prize pool. And like you said, it was Harlen Miller. This is a 63-year-old out of Bismarck, North Dakota. He skipped his niece's wedding so that he could come play this event. He said, quote, "I just had a feeling, at least now I can get her a better wedding present." Indeed, he won it outright.
Oh, her, Harlen. You best be like paying out, buddy. Now you're busted. Everyone knows where you were.
And he claims to be relatively new to poker, having only learned and started playing the game a few years ago. And it's pretty impressive for him to navigate a field that large. And then he defeated Ryan Dodd in heads up play. Ryan Dodd is one of those guys out of New Jersey who we talk about quite often, has a lot of success. Dodd actually began the heads up match with a pretty big chip lead, but the cards fell Miller's way and he ended up coming back to seal the deal. So a very impressive finish for him. Some others at that final table. Jonathan Tomeo took 5th for $107,000. He had Aaron Massey finishing in 9th place for just over $40,000. So another big successful MSPT Venetian event, and there's going to be another one coming up. And of course, there's going to be great Venetian events all summer long. They have their summer Deep Stack Championship Series running right now. So lots of headlines. If you're not following along that, you can do so on Twitter at Venetian Poker. They're having updates every day.
Poker is back, baby. And on the other side of the spectrum, but still in the city of sin, we have the US Poker Open going down. And by the other side of the spectrum, I mean, you have your mid-stakes poker tours, and then you have your humongous, gigantic, no one can afford to play these tournaments, poker tours. And that is what, in fact, the US Poker Open is. But this tournament is so elite, so bossy. It brings all of the biggest and best poker players out to play. And as I'm just looking at the list of recent winners, I'm not surprised, but it's pretty impressive still, Chad.
Yeah, there's big names. It started off with event number 1, which was a 10K no limit hold'em. It got 95 runners, which made it the largest U.S. Poker Open event to date, and that was won by Jake Daniels for $218,000. Now, there's going to be a new winner every day throughout this series. We're going to have recaps up on Poker News. As of this recording, there have been 5 winners, so we'll go through them real quick. I mentioned Jake Daniels in event number 1. Event number 2 was a 10K pot limit Omaha event. That was won by Sam Soverel for $175,000. And then event number 3, another 10K no limit event. Familiar face taking this one down in Joe McKeehen, mentioned him earlier, 2015 World Series of Poker main event champion, has won multiple bracelets, just a crusher, wins this one for $200,000. John Riordan won the 10K big bet mix for $163,000, defeated a tough final table that included Sean Perry and Alex Foxen, who finished in 2nd and 3rd place respectively. And then most recently, just last night, Joey Weissman mounted a comeback to win event number 5, a 10K no limit hold'em event for $204,000. Yeah, it was, he basically doubled up 5 times throughout the final table to stay alive, ended up defeating Adam Hendricks in heads up play. Joe McKeehen, who I just mentioned, won event number 3. He finished in 3rd place for $102,000 and takes the points lead in the U.S. Poker Open. If you remember, these Poker Go events are designed so that there'll be a player of the series, if you will, who I believe gets a $100,000 prize, a nice trophy. He's got 302 points, which is a good lead right now in front of Jake Daniels, who has 219 points. But there are still lots of events to be had, so expect some shakeups on that leaderboard.
Well, that is it for the most important news for this week. As we mentioned, Chad will be going very soon to Las Vegas to cover World Series of Poker online, to cover the grand openings of the Resorts World. I cannot wait to hear. In the meantime, though, Chad, we still have you for the next couple weeks. Am I right? You're still with us?
I mean, I'm going to be here even when I'm coming from you to everybody in Vegas. You're the one who's going to be gone, right? Like that, this baby could pop any day. I seen Lynn Gilmartin is like past her expected date, and like she's
story.
Close. Okay,
Lynn,
let's hear it.
Lynn and I are 1 week apart. Our due dates are 1 week apart. So hers is like the 26th, I think, of June, and mine is July 2nd. Hers, it might be the 29th. I can't remember. But basically, we are like a week or less than a week apart, which is crazy because those Poker News peeps out there know that Lynn Gilmartin and I were also born on the same day, as was Anna Marquez, as was a lot of other poker players, and Robbie Straczynski. Why can I not think? Oh, I can see his face. It doesn't matter. But November 3rd is a very popular day for being born if you're in poker or poker media. But yeah, the baby can come any day now. We've got the tub here. We're ready. We're ready to make this baby happen. And I will, of course, keep you guys posted. I'm not that good on the social media, but I figure once I get on maternity leave, I'm just gonna have so much time. I'm gonna be posting all the time on the social media, letting you guys know exactly all the details of this birth. And just kidding, I'll never do that to you guys. But next week we don't know, right? Mystery guest. We'll see who it's gonna be. Hopefully Niklas Astedt.
I'll tell you what, I've reached out to some big names in this poker industry. Niklas Astedt is one. A former main event champion is another. Like I want to get some big guests for this Poker News podcast here moving forward. And, you know, we've got some boots on the ground at the U.S. Poker Open, so we might try to incorporate some short interviews from some of the players there here next week. We'll see if that pans out.
I would love that. I mean, Jeff used to do interviews from the events he was covering. I don't know what happened. It's like he doesn't think he has to do any hard work anymore, any hard leg work. All right, cool. Well, we appreciate you guys listening. As always, I just had a big meeting about the podcast a couple days ago, and we just appreciate our loyal peeps. And if and when you do see us out in the live world, if you see Chad or I at the World Series, please come introduce yourselves. And I guess if you see Jeff too, fine. But we love to meet the people who listen to the podcast. You definitely make the whole thing possible. And Chad, I'm glad you got your furnace situation fixed. I don't know why you're getting your furnace fixed, because it's like 8,000 degrees right now, but glad everything's resolved, and we will catch you guys on the flip. Deuces.